Once we understand why the financial aid application is worth our time, then we transition to how to ensure that we do the application as quickly and correctly as possible. This is what this video is about. So to recap, let's actually just review some of the reasons why it's worth applying. Financial aid is not just for low-income students. Financial aid helps you qualify for support programs like Promise, EOPS, TRIO, and many others that individually have really unique supports. They help you qualify for various scholarships. Money of the grants, so cash money that you could potentially claim if you're eligible in financial aid, are grants that you've funded, right? That you've actually paid into in taxes by your loved ones. Financial aid covers more than tuition. It covers books, supplies, housing, food, transportation, childcare, or any cost of attendance, right? Unused aid may even be saved for future semesters or quarters. So let me say that again. Unused financial aid that you claim while you're at a community college or whatever college that you're at can be saved for future semesters. Okay? This is true for hundreds, if not thousands of our students, but in case you didn't know that, these grants that you can get as you're enrolled here at Skyline or a two-year college, you can save for when you transfer. But the only way to save it is to get it now, right? It's not by not applying and applying only when you need it, because financial aid is not just a loan, okay? You don't need to be a full-time student, and it opens more doors. So that's the little recap. One more thing we'll recap before we get into how to complete our applications more accurately and with less time and stress is to review the definition of dependent or independent. If you students are a dependent student in FAFSA's when you are not able to say that you were born before January 1st, 2002 of our 25-26 FAFSA form or academic year, when you're not able to say that you're not married, you're not working on a master's or doctorate program, you're not currently serving on active duty in the U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training, you're not a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces, you do not have children or other people who live with you and receive more than half of their support from you between our academic year of July 1st 2025 to June 30th of 2026, that you are not at the time since you turned 13 or an orphan, at the time since you turned 13 you were a ward of the court, or that you were in foster care. So please take a look at this list. If you aren't able to say yes to any of these, you will be considered dependent in FAFSA's eyes, in which case you are going to need a contributor to help you fill out your form. All right? There are some special circumstances or unusual circumstances that is what FAFSA calls that could come up. So we're going to get into that. On the screen that you're looking at is called the FAFSA prototype. This allows me to pretend to be a student and to show you what it kind of looks like on your end. So we're going to go ahead and launch Reina Tran. Any login related issues regarding forgetting username or forgetting password, please do contact the federal student aid for these issues, because the financial aid offices at our schools rarely have much ability to help restore username or help you forget password. This is going to have to be done through federal student aid folks. Okay, so once we log in, again, this is try to remember when the academic year begins and when it ends. So this form is not January to January, rather July 1st to June 30th. So it is true there sometimes are parents who are students as well, but for the purposes of trying to get financial aid as a student, even if you're a parent, you're going to want to select that you're a student. Here are some introductory videos we recommend you watching, or just tune into our show here at Make Money Make Sense to get the inside scoop, right? After we complete those 4 introductory videos, at this point, when it's student identity information, please confirm that your name written here is the name on your social security card, if you have one. If it's not, you're going to go on the top right, click your name, go to settings, and make that update. Because if we don't have the name on your social security card reflected in your FAFSA account, that is going to cause delays and extra work that you can prevent. Make sure everything else is correct, of course, right? All personal information. Include the apartment number if you have an apartment number. Your state of residence. If you weren't born in California, you would enter the date in which you moved to California. So this consent and approval page, if you do not consent and approve of this, you will not be eligible for federal aid. And we hope that you are eligible and consider receiving your federal aid, such as your Pell Grant, federal work study, ability to kind of pay yourself through the work that you do on a campus. This page, if it reads success, that is good news. If it reads a yellow box that says could not complete at this time, it likely means one, you either do not have a social security number, or it didn't match, or you just created your account that same week or within 3 days. It will say that you are not able to import your information from the IRS and that you're going to have to come back at a later time or import it manually. So that's what that kind of means. So all of that to say, it's advantageous for you to kind of create a FSA account earlier, at least 3 days earlier before you actually begin a form. Okay. Here are the circumstances we're talking about. So your marital status. Many students are single, but you not necessarily are. Just select the correct marital status. Your school plans, let's just go with freshmen. It's more affects loans. The second question, when the student begins the 2025-26 school year, will they have a first bachelor's degree? So please answer this correctly and truthfully. Just know that if you do have a first bachelor's degree, congratulations. You will not be eligible for federal Pell Grant. Okay, but please select this correctly. I mean, one of the larger lessons that I hope to teach you all in this application process is 1 minute invested in going slow in this application can save you 5 minutes down the line. Just, we know that this application feels like a drag. This is one of the reasons why they've tried to simplify it and cut almost half the questions. But just also know, like, whatever you end up selecting does make an impact in terms of your outcome, right? So let's look at some of these student personal circumstances. Student is currently serving on active duty in U.S. Armed Forces for purposes other than training. Student is a veteran of the U.S. Armed Forces. Student has children or other people, excluding their spouse, who live with them and receive more than half of their support from the student from now and between July 1st and June 30th. Key from now and between, right, these dates. That year, at the time the student turned 13, they were an orphan, no living biological or adoptive parent, they were a ward of the court, they were in foster care. The student is or was a legally emancipated minor as determined by the court in their state of residence. The student is or was in a legal guardianship with someone other than their parent or step-parent as determined by the court in their state of residence. So if students are able to select one or multiple of these, it will make it so that they are an independent student, which means what again? It means that we do not have to invite our contributors, aka our parents, into our form. So just know that that's what that does. Of course, if you do select any of these will end up as various types of requirements that you'll have to fulfill with your financial aid office to provide evidence of these statements and circumstances. This one, the next screen, is student homelessness. At any time on or after July 1st of 2024, was a student unaccompanied and either 1, homeless, or 2, self-supporting and at risk of being homeless. So if students feel that this statement warrants a yes answer, there's a few other options, right? Did any of the following determine the student was homeless or at risk for being homeless? Director or designee of an emergency transition shelter, street outreach program, homeless youth drop-in center, or other programming serving those experiencing homelessness. Students, high school or high school district homeless liaison or designee. Director or designee of a project supported by a federal TRIO or Gear Up program grant. Federal aid administrator. So just ideally, we can select one of these if we're in this situation. And then just know that this one will also have additional steps to complete afterwards, okay? So one one of the forms I wanted to highlight was this one for this year. If you look closely at this form, this is what we're talking about. So no matter what college or district or university you're at, if you select that in your financial aid application in your FAFSA form, you'll likely need to do that. Need to follow up. Okay. Well, actually, 100% you'll need to follow up with your financial aid staff. So let's just go with no. And then these are some quote unquote what FAFSA calls as unusual circumstances. Student may be experiencing unusual circumstances that they left home due to an abusive or threatening environment, abandoned by, estranged from their parents, have refugee or asylee status and are separated from parents, or their parents are displaced in a foreign country, are a victim of human trafficking, are incarcerated, or parents incarcerated in contact with the parent who would pose a risk to the student, or are otherwise unable to contact or locate their parents. So if students were to say yes to these unusual circumstances, it will also deem them as independent, so they don't need to invite their parents to their form to be able to complete their form. With that said, they will also need to provide evidence of these unusual circumstances to their financial aid office. Okay? So, let's go with no. Here we'll see that the dependent status, it will evaluate whether you're independent or dependent. Here, because we went with no for the previous questions, we are a dependent student. All right? We want to say no to this question. It auto selects as no, but just recognize that it's worded a little bit weirdly, right? Are the students' parents refusing to provide information? So I've definitely served students whose parents did not want to provide their information to their student FAFSA form, and that actually made the student want to say yes. But if we read the subtext, if students say no to this, they will not get federal Pell Grant. And federal Pell Grant is a really powerful grant that we hope all eligible students can get, so that we can reduce the financial burden of school and actually get cash into their bank for that, because this is cash aid, unlike California College Promise Grant. So even if students' parents are refusing to provide information on their FAFSA form, please, the advice is still select no. Here we go. So if parents are married with each other, both parents are going to need to provide answers and create an account. I've seen cases where when one parent creates an account for the student, at the end of that parent's form for the student's form, they just have to invite the partner, and we'll make it so that the FAFSA is complete. Okay, so let's just say parents are not married with each other, because statistically speaking in America, 50% of parents are not married. And if parents do not live together, and if one parent did provide more financial support than the other over the past 12 months, and that parent has not been remarried, only one parent will need to provide information, right? So if parents do live together but are not married, both will, okay? And if one parent did not provide more support and they were not remarried, whatever, answer these questions and whatever makes sense for you all, just recognize this will influence how many contributors you have to invite into your form to be able to sign off on your form. Okay. In this invitation part, please go nice and slow and take a photo. Don't mess up on the date of birth or social security number. 1 out of every 20 students do mess up on this part, because if the email address is correct and you are able to get away with using another email address that is not associated with your account here, but ideally you can just use your parents' email address. But if the email address is correct, they will receive an email stating that, hey, your student needs your help to complete their FAFSA form. If any of this information in terms of first name, last name, date of birth, social security number is incorrect, then even though they got that email, when the parent signs into their own FAFSA account, they will see there is no activity that's outstanding. So if your parent does not have a social security number, this physical address will act as the social security number, which, in other words, it's super sensitive in terms of caps locks, spaces, dashes. However the parent writes the physical address in their own account, please have that match to the physical address in your invitation. So either they have an account already and we would actually ideally want to just sign in them and get that personal information, like everything that we're seeing here, so that you can put this in verbatim, right? No caps, no additional spaces after the names or after any of these characters. It really just needs to match. If your parent doesn't have an account, you would write this in, okay? After you write this in, take a photo and send it to your parents so that when your parent is creating their account, they can actually create it based off the information that you wrote, all right? So after you send invite, let's see. So extra spaces like this really messes things up, all right? So save yourself the headache and don't add extra spaces like that. Okay, great. So again, to recap, even if the email address is a valid email address of your parents or maybe a second email address of yours, if this information above is incorrect, when your parent signs into their own FAFSA account, there will be no pending invitation from you. Okay, so make sure this is correct. If it's not correct, no big deal. You can update it, but the whole purpose of this video is how can you do your application correct the first time, all right? Okay, these answers. So if we are an eligible non-citizen, let's go over what eligible non-citizen means. If we're an eligible non-citizen, we are a U.S. national or permanent resident, right? If we are not sure what a permanent resident is, please go ahead and look that up. This is sometimes known as a green card holder, okay? You would want to put your green card number into the field of what the FAFSA form, right? Here's some other determinants of eligible non-resident. Okay, so if you are a green card holder, you are not yet a U.S. citizen or national. Okay, you'll put your green card number in here. All right. Please go nice and slow for this so that it actually matches. Educational status, duty. If you completed high school in a foreign country, do not enter none of the above. Okay. High school diploma, because if you didn't complete high school and you don't have a state recognized high school equivalent such as a GED certificate and you're not homeschooled, you'll not be eligible for foreign aid. Okay, so if you went to high school in the States, please go ahead and find your high school here. If you went to high school in a foreign country, Prototype doesn't have this, but you would actually type the letters FC to then be able to select foreign country, and you could add your foreign country high school manually. And then you'll select it, or you can add school manually, right? But if you're in a foreign country, again, make sure you select high school if you want federal aid. Confirm your high school is correct. It says, please take a look at this stuff. So the reason it's not asking whether or not I, as a student, did a 1040 was earlier we got the green rectangular box that says success, that the information was imported from the IRS. That's called the data retrieval tool actually working. And the hint about that is if you create your account 1 week before you do your form, that data retrieval tool should work, assuming you have a social security number. All of this stuff, if you're not sure what it is, please go ahead and look it up. But for the typical student, if there is such a thing, these are likely zeros. And then this one, please do an estimate of your... I've worked with thousands of students now, and not a single time have I inputted for student assets any network with investments, or real estate, or businesses, or investment firms. So you can select up to 20 schools. I hope you're not actually selecting 20 schools. If you end up attending a school that you did not select in your form for this academic year, you can always go back and remove and add schools. If your school is not showing up for some reason, go ahead and search your school's federal code. So federal code, the school, and you can input it here. But the search engine should work for schools. State Skyline, that's a prototype, that is. And then it'll say 1 out of 20 schools selected. We'll go ahead and continue. And at the end, you can go ahead and review all of this because, again, one of the principles behind this video is how can we spend an extra minute to save ourselves 5, right? Make it easier for our future selves. So please go ahead and verify this stuff. Notice in your contributor section, the status is invite sent. If they complete it, Well, if they accept the invite, it will say invite accepted. And once they complete, it will say section completed. All right. So you can kind of manage and see the status of that. Please explain the benefits of why it's worth their time, your parents' time, if they don't know, to apply for financial aid. Okay. Specifically that oftentimes these financial aid programs are programs that they have been paying into already. All right, that they have literally been funding. So this is one of your unique opportunities to be able to get something that you're paying for. Just like when a pothole disappears on the freeway, you paid for that, right? But most folks don't know that financial aid covers more than tuition. Most folks don't know applying for financial aid gets us access to support programs that are not just for low-income students. Most folks don't know that a financial aid application will open more doors to internships, scholarships, research programs. All right. So there's a lot of misinformation out there. Please reference the financial aid facts to get the inside scoop about some of this stuff. And with that said, if thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in to the Make Money Make Sense show. We hope you understand that what it means to be a dependent versus independent student. Okay. Even if you file your own taxes, even if you've moved out or living on your own, if you are not able to say yes to some of these things and the unusual circumstances that they were covering earlier, that I'm highlighting here on the screen as well, you will need to invite your contributor. Okay, but if you are able to say yes to these things and are in one of these unusual circumstances, just know that it's likely that you'll need to provide evidence of the circumstance. So please visit your financial aid office. We are here to help you get your financial aid. All right. Catch you in the next one. Peace.